Hi there, this is Sean from Thumper Custom Drums. Today I'm going to do a little video on tuning. We're going to be working with just the snare, just some snare tuning, some basic generic snare tuning. I'm going to go over a couple things that to check for while you're tuning, just kind of maintenance things on the drum, and then just kind of a really basic generic way to tune a snare. And this can go for any snare. And also, this isn't like the only way to like tune a snare drum. This is just kind of like a good baseline to start. And and it's again a good baseline for starting, but doesn't mean that it's going to be the right way for your snare. Every snare is going to be different, especially depending on the tuning and the snare bed. You know, if you want a very low tuning, high tuning, so on and so forth. But this is just going to be a very basic kind of tutorial today. Okay, so starting with the drum. This drum is just a quick little kind of info on this guy. This is a 7 deep by 14 in diameter. And it is a 15 ply all maple. And it's got this black oyster wrap on it. And we've got our standard bearing edge on here, which is a 45 degree on the inside and a 35 on the outside. Okay, we're using just chrome tube lugs. It's our standard lugs for our snares. I like them because they're kind of low mass. And then we've got a trick throw off, and that's a black one actually. So, all right, so a couple maintenance things real quick. So when you're pulling off your old heads, one of the things I like to do is I like to go around and inspect the bearing edge, make sure it doesn't have like any divots, or make sure it's nice and sharp still, make sure it's all in good shape, nice and smooth. So you can take a little bit of sandpaper to it if you want to kind of clean it up if need be. I usually just take a rag. I'll just go around the edge, clean any debris off, check it. And then the other things I like to do too while the heads are off is I like to go in and check all of the mounting screws for the lugs and the throw off, the butt plate, and anything else that might be on the inside of the drum, and just tighten those. I'm not going to show you that because I've already gone through and done that, so I know they're good. But and you don't necessarily need to over tighten those, by the way. You just kind of make sure that they're nice and tight, snug, and that they're not working their way out. Okay, so those are a couple things to check while you got the heads off. Okay, so I'm going to put the top head on here, and we're using Aquarian heads. It's our standard head for all of our drums, standard brand of heads for all of our drums. All our drums come with Aquarian heads. Today, I'm going to be using the Aquarian Focus X coated with a power dot in the middle. Okay, this is like my new favorite snare drum head. The Focus X heads, they have this little extra dampener ring around the outer edge, and it's got little breathing holes in it, and it just kind of helps control the outer ring of the drum, and so it gives you this really nice controlled, clean, well-balanced sound. And it's a single ply head, so you're still getting a lot of resonance and tone out of it. You know, sometimes with thicker plied heads, it's gonna deaden the drum a bit. So, put this guy on real quick. Got our triple flange tube here. Okay, make sure that's all lined up. Now, I like to align the logo, the head logo, towards the logo on the drum, but that's just me. You don't have to do that. I'm going to put our lugs on, our tension rods on here, and what I like to do with these tension rods is I like to dip the end of them in a little bit of all-purpose oil, like 3-in-1, just oil, just a little bit of oil, because it helps lubricate them going into the lug, and it gives you a wider tuning range. And it also just makes everything smoother. So if your drum doesn't have those tension rods oiled, I highly recommend doing that. You'll notice a huge difference when it comes to tuning. All of our drums coming out of the shop have all of their tension rods already oiled, so you won't have to worry about that on yours. It is good to check that periodically though, because eventually the oil will, dissipate from use and time. So it's good to re-oil them every so often, and that's just, check them as needed. It depends on how much use you get out of them, or how much you're using them. So another little quick note on these tension rods. I've got these Hendrix drum sleeves on here. They're just a little plastic sleeve, and we use these on all of our drums as well. We like them because it gives you some separation between the tension rod and the eyelet and the hoop. So you're not metal on metal, you've got actually a little plastic buffer there. So those are also really nice, and it kind of helps with tuning as well. So, okay, let me finish putting these guys on. Okay, once all of the tension rods are on, what I like to do is I kind of go around the rim and kind of wiggle it back and forth to make sure that the head is sitting sitting on the drum equidistant, so it's not pushed off to one side or the other. And so I just kind of go around and kind of tug on it, make sure it's nice. And then what I'll do is I'll take the palm of my hand and I'll push really hard in the center too, and that will actually help center it, and it actually helps stretch the drum head as well. Now with some drum heads, like Remo and Evans, I find that the more you can stretch them out, the better. So sometimes it's nice to really, make sure your drum's on a nice hard surface, make sure the under part of it is protected, maybe with a towel or a cloth or something, but put a lot of weight on it to really stretch those out. On the aquarian heads, I found that I don't need to do that as much. Usually just a nice firm pressure with the palm in the center is all it needs. And that's mostly just for centering it. Okay. So once that's on, I'm going to go around and finger tighten all these tension rods, okay? And once I get them all finger tightened, I will press in the center one more time, and then just double check, make sure that they're all finger tight. Okay, so I've already swapped out the bottom head, the resonant head, so I'm going to go ahead and flip this guy over. We're going to take a look at that. Okay, all right, so here's our resonant head. This is just a classic clear snare side by Aquarian. I'm going to go around, just double check tension rods are tight, which they are. Drop this just a hair. Okay, all right, so what I like to do is I like to start with the resonant head for tuning first. Doesn't really matter whether you start with the batter or the resonant, but usually what happens is the drum, when it's facing the right way, the batter is on the top side, right? So you usually take that head off first, okay? You put on the new one, hand tighten your lugs, I flip the drum, then I'll remove the old one, put the new one on, and then we're ready to tune. So usually this is what's available, right? So that's kind of what I start with, okay? So once we're all finger tight on our tension rods, and you've gone through and put a little pressure, make sure it's all centered. I'm gonna go around, and I like to use 2 key rods. You can use 1, 2 is a little bit quicker, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and tighten these lugs a half turn at a time, okay? And we're gonna alternate. Now this is an 8 lug snare drum. A lot of snare drums out there are 10 lug. Some people find that that's better. I like 8 because it's quicker on tuning. There's less lugs you have to worry about. And it's an even number as opposed to an odd number, so you don't have to worry about skipping and then keeping track of where you were at when you're tuning. It's really easy. You just turn those two, move over one, turn those two, turn those two. It's really straightforward. The other thing is it's less mass, it's less material, lets the drum breathe a little bit more, gives it more resonance. The thing about a lot of mass on a drum, the more mass you have, the more energy it takes to produce a sound. So there's going to be less resonance with more mass, so more lugs. So we just go with 8 lugs. We've used that system for years, and it's worked very well for us. But anyways, so let's start tuning this guy. So the resonant head, I always tune tighter than the top head. And what I kind of start with is I'm actually going to do one full turn. Okay, I'm going to go on skip one, so the opposite lugs or tension rods here. And do the same. Okay, and then I'm going to just move over one. And what I found is that these tension rods are now loose because I've tightened the head overall. So I'm just going to finger tighten those again. So I'm getting equal turns on all the lugs. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and we'll give this a full turn. Okay, and then do the opposite one. Do a full turn. Okay. Now I'm going to push down on the head, make sure it's nice and centered still, and then we're going to do it one more time. So we're going to do 2 full turns on these tension rods. Okay, so now that we've got that done, what we're going to want to go and do is we're going to want to make sure that all of the tensions on all of these rods are even. So we're going to go through, and I like to use my finger and I just tap it. Okay, some people will use a stick. Some people will put a finger in the middle of the drum and tap it. But I've found that just one finger, nice little tap, about an inch and a half away from the rim, works really, really well. Okay, so we're going to go around here. So I usually try and find the highest pitched one, and I kind of bring everything up to that level. And the thing about tuning is you got to develop an ear for it. Okay, you got to be able to determine what's high, what's low. And it takes a lot of practice. Some people are naturals at it, which that's good for them, but most of us have to work at it. So what you kind of want to listen for, okay, so you hear that, right? Going on to this next one. So this next one is lower, okay? It's not as tight as this one, and you can tell because the pitch is higher of the tighter one, of course. So the tighter you go, the higher the pitch, right? Okay, sometimes it will be confusing because a lug or a tension rod or a side that is lower will sound a little bit higher. And so what you have to do sometimes is you have to detune the thing and then bring it back up and work it until you get it to where it's matching the other one, okay? So if you're just unsure whether it needs to be up or down, detune it, slowly bring it up until you get it where you want it, okay? So I'm going to start with this one. I'm just going to go around. So this one's actually higher. So I'm going to bring it down. Okay, so they're all even all the way around, right? Now what we're going to want to do, and this is personal preference, you don't have to do this, but I like to do it to give the snares a nice tight bed to work on, is I will tighten the lugs on either side of the snare bed. Now the snare bed on the drum, you can see on the hoop there's a slit here for the snare to pass the snare. Well, this is a fabric, but sometimes they're pieces of mylar, sometimes they're string. But the thing that holds the snare wires in place, it passes through this slit here, and it goes over the edge of the drum. Now, the edge of the drum typically will have a snare bed, and that snare bed is, I wish I had one open here so then I could just show you, but it is sanded down or routed down, so it's actually lower and it's flat typically. Sometimes there'll be an equal burying edge all the way around. Again, sometimes it's just flat. But anyways, what I like to do on either side of the snare bed is give an extra bit of tension. So I'm going to go and give them another half turn. Okay. And let's listen to that. So I think it needs a little bit more. So I'm going to give it another like quarter turn. Okay. There we go. Okay, so you can hear these are now going to be lower. These are going to be tighter. And I'm just going to go back through and make sure that these are equal because we did wrench on them a little bit. So. Okay, so there we go. Now we're ready for our snare wires. We are using puresound snare wires, some of the best snare wires out there in my opinion. These are 20-strand brass custom pros. I really like the custom pros. They have a different little edge here, which gives a little space between the head and the snares, so it helps prevent extra snare buzz. And the other cool thing about the custom pros is they give you these, I don't know if those are nylon or what, they're a fabric little strap, but you put that strap through where you normally would, and then they give you this little clevis pin here. And I've got a little hole, and I just thread that through. If I can get it started. Sometimes they're a little tricky. There we go. And that holds it in place, and there we go. I really like this because it's really easy to put new heads on or to put new snares on, swap them out. You just pull that pin, pull this off. And the cool thing is that I didn't have to change the position of where the snare wires are. So I can always have, once you find that perfect placement for your snare wires, it can stay that way, which is an amazing thing because every time you have to retune or redo the bottom head, you're always having to find that sweet spot again. So this really makes it easy. Okay, so I'm going to do the same on the other side. Make sure that your throw off is in the off position so that you've got a little bit of slack to feed that guy through. Okay, I might actually have to bend this down to give myself a little more slack. Okay, let's get our pin. Through. There we go. Okay. All right. So there we go. Now our snare wires are on. Okay, so I'm going to flip the drum now. I'm going to leave these snare wires off. And we're going to tune the top head. So the top head, the batter head, that's where you can have fun with it. You know, the bottom head, the resonant head, I'm pretty consistent with tuning it two cranks, full turns all the way around, and then an extra half to full turn on the tension rods next to the snare bed. And I find that is a really great starting point for just about all tunings on a snare drum. And you would think, okay, well, if you want a really, really low tuning, you would detune that as well. But the thing about it is you want to have a really nice, tight, resonant head because that gives you a really good base for those snare wires. It's going to prevent extra snare buzz, and you're going to have a better snare response. It's also going to give you a little bit more articulation with the top head, believe it or not. So that's where I like to start. Okay, now this top head, we'll kind of start with a kind of a lower tuning. I'm just going to give one full turn all the way around, okay? Okay. All right, so let's see where we are at. Now you can choose to either kind of match everything to just random one. You can go with the lower one, the higher one. I think I'm going to start with a lower one, and we're going to try doing just a very low tuning for you to give a demonstration of that, and then I'll bring it up. Okay? So let's see here. That one I think was the lowest. So. And one of the things you have to kind of keep doing is you have to kind of keep working your way around, because as you tighten or loosen one, it could affect the next one. So as you're going around, it's good to just kind of double check and make sure that they haven't changed too much. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. I'm going to engage the snares now. I'm actually going to tighten the snares up first because we loosened them quite a bit. Okay. And let's see where we're at. That's pretty good. I'm going to tighten up those snares just a little bit more. That's pretty good solid sound. I don't have any muffling on top. This is just the drum itself with some fresh heads and proper tuning. Okay, let's crank it up and see what it sounds like. I'm going to do another half turn. Okay. All right, that's pretty close. Engage those snare wires. All right, there we go. Thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned. Got some other videos that we're going to be working on in time. Probably not going to get around as quickly as I would like to, but do keep an eye out, because we'll be having some more videos. I'll probably do some tuning videos on toms and kick drum and the whole kit. So yeah, we'll see you guys later. Bye.